Welcome, YouTubers. Let me get TikTok going, and we are ready to roll. Welcome, folks. How's everybody doing today? Nice and cold, I'm sure, still. And there's TikTok. Excellent. Let me reverse myself on TikTok, and now we are ready, Freddie. All right. I'm going to sit back and be more cash. Dog toys spread everywhere. Big surprise. Hey, Brianna. So welcome, guys. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. Thank you. Who is that with the gift there already? Bjorn. This is my nightly show I do from Washington, D.C., talking about the latest news. Thank you, Ellen. We do a lot of news about the war in Ukraine, but we always start with the Trump news. Is Trump getting impeached? No, he is not getting impeached. Republicans control the Senate and the House, so they're not going to touch him. But in any case, let's get rolling. Quick reminder that Saturday is my coffee talk. Hey, Bjorn. Thank you. And thank you for everything, for being a member and for the anniversary. Saturday is our coffee talk. It's the weekly show I do for members only, for the paid monthly subscribers. That's all the subscribers on TikTok, all the subscribers on YouTube, Discord, Ko-fi, etc. I will be beaming live Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. If you are a paid member on TikTok with SNN next to your name, join me on TikTok at that hour, 11 a.m. Saturday. If you're a paid member on YouTube, all of you guys with the names in green, join us. And if you're on Discord, everybody else, although you can also link YouTube to Discord if you get inside the guts of it. And it's just a nice hangout we do with everybody. And, is the audio crackling again for anybody? I think it might be the, okay, good. It's not doing for anybody else, because I think one of the parts might be getting old. One of my little components, I think. Although it shouldn't be doing it on your end. It would be crackling on TikTok, because it's not the component, although it's been acting up, so who knows. Okay, everybody else, it's not. Fred is crackling too. Thank you, Bjorn. I'm not sure what to do, guys. I mean, I can turn it off and on really quick. Hold on. Off, on. Well, that's all I can really do. Thank you. Thank you, Bjorn. 5 gift memberships from Bjorn. Martin, Stormclaw, Michaela, Marie, and Sandria got them. Good. Okay, everyone else, it's sounding fine. That's at least good news. All right, guys, let's get rolling here. Hey, TikTokers. President Trump. So let's start with the Trump news. Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship has met an early, not a demise, but an early stumbling block in the courts today. A judge put it on hold. Just to remind you what this is. Under the U.S. Constitution, if you have a child born, if a child is born in America, that child immediately becomes an American citizen. Trump is trying to change that for people who are here illegally, for tourists, to make it so that they are no longer, their children will no longer become instant Americans. Now, there are certainly, I mean, it's funny, on the tourist side, there have been lots of stories about Russian tourists, Russian women coming here who are pregnant in order to have their babies here, so their babies have American passports. So there's some creepy stuff that goes on. Having said that, it's in the Constitution. This was adjudicated back in like the 1890s. It's in the Constitution. There's not much you can do about it. Anyway, the judge today gave an initial temporary restraining order saying that the law cannot be implemented pending the court case, pending arguments in his court over the next 2 weeks, because, and this is what's interesting though, judges only give temporary restraining orders that say put the law on hold if it looks like they're going to side with the plaintiff. If it looks like they're going to decide the law is unconstitutional, then they put the law on hold. So this is an early indicator of how the judge is going to decide. Now, having said that, you've still got to go to the appeals court and then possibly the Supreme Court. And I would not be surprised if the Supreme Court might want to take this up, because it's an interesting issue, involving constitutional law and all of that. But I think the judge out west said that Trump's executive order on this is, quote, blatantly unconstitutional. So let's see. Oh, the other interesting thing I forgot to mention. The most interesting aspect of this to me is the judge that put a hold on Trump's executive order is a Reagan appointee, appointed by Ronald Reagan, which, Reagan's like the most conservative president we've had in, decades, well, more than decades, 50, 60, 70 years. Trump is not conservative. Trump is MAGA, which is a populist, movement, whatever. But that's a little different. So very interesting that it was a Reagan appointee as well. So basically a conservative, a very, very conservative judge ruled against Trump. Oath keepers. So one of the guys that Trump got out of prison, one of the insurrectionists from January 6th, when a mob tried to violently overthrow our government, one of them is named Stuart Rhodes. And he's the head of a group called Oath Keepers, which is a far-right white supremacist group. And he was found guilty of seditious conspiracy, which is basically when two or more people try to organize the violent overthrow of the government. And he was given 18 years in prison. Trump got him out of jail. Trump commuted his sentence. Basically, there's two things the president can do. One is commuting your sentence, which means you're still guilty, but it's considered time served and you're let out of prison. The other is an actual pardon. When you hear of pardons, it is, that's a really good question, Vijay. When you hear a pardon, it means they've wiped out the sentence entirely. Thank you, Blue Ariel. Meaning you're no longer guilty of the crime, even, that everything's been wiped out. So this guy got a commutation, which it was commuted, which means he's still guilty of sedition. They just let him out of prison. Well, lawmakers on Capitol Hill wanted to meet him. So Republicans in the Congress met this guy yesterday in the Congress. This guy who went to prison for 18 years, or was sentenced for 18 years for attempting to coordinate the violent overthrow of our government. He heads a white supremacist group, which the Oath Keepers is. And Republican members of Congress thought it would be a good idea to meet him because he's a hero to them, apparently. He also, interestingly, the same day, this was announced yesterday. I forgot to mention it to you guys. The Speaker of the House, who's a Republican, so the Republican who runs the House of Representatives, announced yesterday that they're going to have another January 6th committee. They're going to reinvestigate January 6th because they want to exonerate all the criminals who tried to overthrow the government. So, it's just, I mean, it's kind of amazing in a way, because you'd think, why would they want to keep talking about this, right? Why do they want the media to keep showing pictures of those horrible crowds violently beating up the police, right? But that's what's going to happen if they do this committee. But they're going to do the committee again. So, they're going to try to prove the FBI was behind it. Thank you, Randy Fred. All sorts of crazy stuff. And basically try to get these people off the hook. It's again, it says something, not only that they let these people out of prison, but they're now trying to clear their name by changing the history itself, by having this new committee. In any case, Trump has revoked the security. This is actually a very disturbing story. Trump has revoked the security being provided to several top officials of his former administration who are facing Iranian death threats. Thank you, Martin. Trump is apparently revoking their security now because he's angry at them. So he's going to leave them open to possibly being killed by Iranian death squads, basically. The three men, first was John Bolton, who is Trump's national security advisor, who has been very critical of Trump. The second and third are very strange. Mike Pompeo and this other guy, Brian Hook. These two make no sense because they're supportive of Trump. Pompeo was Trump's former Secretary of State, and Hook was a former top aide. It makes no sense that Trump is trying to hurt them, but he is. And again, the Iranians have ever since Trump killed this top Iranian general back in, was it 2000 or so? Was it Soleimani? The Iranians, our intelligence uncovered. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Maddie. Our intelligence uncovered that the Iranians were sent hit squads to try to kill senior American officials, including John Bolton, one of the guys whose security Trump has now taken away. Oh, that's right. Pompeo wouldn't endorse Trump. Okay, thank you, Frank. That explains it. Let me read this a little more. The Biden administration assessed that the threat level remains high and even had to warn Iran that attempting to assassinate any of the American officials would be an act of war. The big concern I've got is if the Biden administration got Iran to hold off on assassinating these three top former Trump officials by A, giving them security, which Trump has now taken away, and B, sending a message, a literal verbal message to Iran saying, America will take this as an act of war if you try to kill any of these officials. By Trump taking away their security, he's sending the message that he doesn't care about their security, which means it's also no longer an act of war. This is very dangerous stuff. This is really, I mean, it's not just dangerous. The pettiness of it is scary, and it should scare people, right? We don't give security to top officials based on whether we like them or not, right? I mean, top U.S. government officials, even if they're Trump officials, right, should not be at risk of losing their lives. That's not okay. It doesn't matter whether we like them or not. They should get security. Trump himself should get security, whether I like him or not. You don't take security away, which literally sends the message and literally means that you don't care if somebody takes them out. That's horrific. I mean, it's and especially since Trump himself faced these attempts against his life, it's just so viciously nasty. Hegseth. So Trump's nominee to be Secretary of Defense, the nomination is moving forward. It passed a key hurdle today in the U.S. Senate, and he's going to be voted on tomorrow. Pete Hegseth, as you know, he's facing a lot of allegations of intoxication, of abusing alcohol, and also sexually harassing and assaulting women, including a recent allegation that came up a couple days ago. The Associated Press is reporting that Hegseth told senators in a document he had to file that he paid $50,000 to a woman who accused him in 2017 of sexual assault. Now, I would say one thing. As a lawyer myself, it's not always evidence of a crime or whatever that somebody got paid off. One of the things you advise clients, I mean, I've never had legal clients, but I've worked with a lot of clients on legal stuff. And one of the things you tell them is sometimes it's worth having something go away. I am Greek Stockholm. It's sometimes worthwhile having something go away, and it's worth paying somebody off to make them go away. Because even if you're right, you're going to have to go through years of legislation. It's going to cost you it'll cost you a lot more money to defend yourself in court and just the trauma and everything else. So even though I don't like Hegseth, I will say the fact that he paid a woman $50,000 to basically be quiet doesn't prove he did anything. I will say this, though. Thank you, Adventures. I'm not sure somebody should be getting a cabinet position if they had to pay a woman $50,000 to be quiet. Even if the allegation, let's say hypothetically, the allegation doesn't stand, right? Why does this guy have to be Secretary of Defense, right? We've got lots of people who are qualified. There's lots of Republicans who are qualified to be Secretary of Defense. Why does this guy have to be it? That's what bothers me from this is can't you find people who didn't have to pay off women in sexual assault suits? I mean, it's where there's smoke, there's fire kind of thing. Wouldn't it be good to just get a nominee who's beyond reproach, where there isn't even a question about any of this? In any case, Fox News reports the price of eggs is up 37%. So this is kind of a funny story in a way. A lot of creators, myself included, have been doing stories about eggs today. Because the reports came out that egg prices in America are up 37%. And the best part was my story on TikTok I did on this. Fox News was the source. It was written in Fox News. Why bring it up? Because Republicans, by the way, for the Americans out there, what are the prices of eggs and where are you? What state are you in? Because I've been really surprised here. I had no idea California egg prices were like $8 to $12 or something insane. Although you're saying New York is $7.50? My God. I mean, they're $4 here, which I thought was outrageous. But I'm talking regular white eggs. Okay. Forget the brown eggs, forget the fancy organic eggs. Okay. Regular white eggs. What price do you guys pay? $6 in Chicago. That's still a lot. 7 in Florida, 5 in Washington, probably state. $4 Tennessee. That's like Washington, D.C. Even Costco's $4.29. Wow. Really? For a dozen or for 18? So a lot of $4, $5, etc. Wow. Yeah, California's out of control. California's $8 and up. St. Louis, $5, $6 in Kentucky. Okay. Very interesting, because what is interesting to me is under Biden had a great economy, but Republicans lied about it, basically. And inflation was a problem. Inflation came down. Nonetheless, they still complained about inflation, and they won the election in part because of it, because they convinced everybody Biden was to blame for inflation, right? Generally speaking, the president is not to blame for inflation. A lot of stuff some stuff with the economy is responsibility of the president. But a lot of times things like inflation, as people are now saying, bird flu, exactly. Bird flu. I know drought was a big problem with a lot of the inflation we saw in the US, the droughts around the world, bird flu, this kind of stuff. But having said that, Republicans wanted to blame Joe Biden every time egg prices went up, even if Biden had nothing to do with it. And you know what? Donald Trump is now president and egg prices went up 37%. He's got to answer for it. That's all I got to say. What else we got? Oh, also, it's been 3 days since Donald Trump promised to end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. The war in Ukraine was supposed to end Tuesday, actually, at noon, according to Trump's campaign promises. It did not. It's now Thursday evening here in America. Just want to mention that. So it's now been actually 2 days, I should say, 2.5 days since the war in Ukraine was supposed to end, and it didn't. What else we got here? Trump. So this is sort of this. Let's move on to Ukraine now. This is actually a very interesting story. Actually, a good story about Trump. Very weird, but a good story. Trump said today, Trump beamed into Davos today. Every year in Davos, Switzerland, they do a big economic forum. All the big sort of big corporate CEO types show up. Sometimes Trump went last, or one of the years, presidents from around the world show up. It's a very big meet and greet for very influential people from around the world. Trump was beamed in. I watched it this morning, and he was, talking to a lot of the banking leaders. They had Jamie Dimon, I think, might have been there, the head of Bank of America, the head of Banco Santander, this woman who was very funny, actually, because she was talking about how her bank was bigger than two of the boys' banks that were sitting with her on the panel, which was it was cute. It was very funny. But listen to this, though. Trump said something fascinating about Ukraine and Russia. Trump said, and he was beamed into Davos. Trump said he's going to ask OPEC. And OPEC, you guys know, is an organization of petroleum exporting countries. A lot of Middle Eastern countries, also includes, I think, Nigeria, maybe Mexico. Help me out, guys, because it does include some countries outside of the Middle East. But OPEC is a good percentage of the world's oil. I don't know if it's a third or whatever. But it's a good percentage of the world's oil. So when OPEC works together on prices, they can set the prices, basically, for oil. Trump is going to urge OPEC to decrease the oil prices, in order to cut oil revenue to Russia to stop the war in Ukraine. This is fascinating. Now, I don't think in a million years OPEC is going to care what Donald Trump says. I'm not convinced they're going to cut prices. But the fact that, but this is what gets interesting. The fact that Donald Trump is talking about cutting money to Russia, cutting oil money to Russia in order to stop the war is fascinating, because it means he's looking to hurt Russia. He's looking to pressure Russia, right? He's looking to use the stick against Russia. That's for Donald Trump. Seriously, guys, this is fascinating. I mean, because Trump, let's face it, we all thought he was going to come to office and basically get on his knees and bow down to Putin, right? He's talking about, and here's the other thing, by the way, if you were to cut Russia's oil revenues, oil and gas, energy makes up about 40%, 40. Thank you, Yari. Keep the gifts coming, guys. I do this for a living. Your gifts pay the bills, so please keep them coming. Thank you, Yari, for that. Oil and energy sales make up 40% of Russia's federal budget. So, meaning the money Russia spends each year on its budget overall for its government, 40% of that money comes from energy sales. Thank you. Who's that? Mr. Autumn? Thank you, Mr. Autumn. 40% of that money, 40, comes from energy sales. A huge amount of money in Russia comes from energy. Trump is trying to take that money away. And if he takes that money away, it's going to hurt the Russian, it's going to cripple the Russian government overall, not just cripple the war effort. Again, I don't know if he's going to pull this off. I don't know whether he's going to try to do it. I'm not convinced he's going to be successful getting OPEC to lower prices. But the fact that Donald Trump is talking about really punishing the Russian economy in a horrific way is fascinating to me. That's good news. Now, one thing, let me read you the quote, actually. He said, if OPEC were to lower the price of oil, it would end Russia's full-scale war in Ukraine immediately. Quote, if the price came down, the Russia-Ukraine war would end immediately. Right now, the price is high enough that the war will continue. You got to bring down the oil price and end that war. I think it's fascinating. I mean, again, it doesn't mean he's going to pull it off, but we're talking about Donald Trump here. That is good news to hear Trump talking about finding ways to basically go after Russia rather than placating Russia. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Flower Lady, for the Paddington in the snow. There's another Ukraine story. Let me find this. Maybe this is it. Yeah, listen to this story. Listen to this story. Link the two stories here, okay? Trump was asked if there'd be at Davos. He was asked if there's going to be a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia, okay, by next year's Davos. So in a year, will there be a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia? And he said, well, you'll have to ask Russia. Ukraine is ready to make a deal. That's what's interesting. Trump is convinced that Ukraine is ready to negotiate. The Ukrainians have made that clear to him. The Ukrainians have done everything they can to bow down before Trump, and it's worked. Trump is convinced Ukraine wants to make a deal. He is also convinced that Russia is the problem now, which is also why he's talking about possibly, right, lowering oil prices to hurt Russia. This is very, I mean, let's see where it stands next, in a couple months. But again, currently, Trump is leaning towards Ukraine and recognizing that Ukraine wants peace and recognizing that Russia is going to be the problem. That's very interesting. Again, guys, we have to take whatever we can get here with Trump. And this is not bad. Keep in mind, okay, Trump had said coming into all of this that he wanted, that his approach to the peace was two things. Either, thank you, Super Hornet, he said he was going to demand that Russia and Ukraine sit down to the peace table and negotiate. And if Ukraine doesn't negotiate, he's going to cut off their weapons. And if Russia doesn't negotiate, thank you, Super Hornet, thank you, Gabe, as well, for the gifts on TikTok, and Mama Pegs, if Ukraine doesn't negotiate, he's going to cut off their weapons. If Russia doesn't negotiate, he's going to give more weapons, he said, to Ukraine. And again, we were all kind of like, is he? Right? I mean, is he? The big challenge here is for Russia, or for Trump, I should say, to end up trusting Ukraine and not trusting Russia. That's the big challenge here. And so far, he's leaning more towards Ukraine than Russia, and that's a good thing. Hey, can't believe everything he says, Maggie. That's true. But you know what? I'd rather have Trump saying good stuff than bad stuff. That's the bottom line. And this is good that he's saying good stuff. Little more here. What else we got here? Oh, this was a Reuters story that just came out that I thought was very interesting. Listen to this. President Putin has grown increasingly concerned about distortions in Russia's wartime economy, just as Trump pushes for an end to the conflict. 5 sources with knowledge of the situation told Reuters. It says domestic activity, meaning the economy, has become strained in recent months by labor shortages and high interest rates introduced to tackle inflation, which has accelerated under record military spending. That has contributed to the view within a sector of the Russian elite that a negotiated settlement to the war is desirable, according to 2 of the sources familiar with the Kremlin's thinking. What's interesting to me is Trump was making comments like this in that tweet yesterday, the tweet that he kind of threatened Russia. He talked about how the Russian economy wasn't doing well and Putin really needed an out. I think this is what he's talking about. The U.S. intelligence has assessed that Putin's economy is in trouble. And it doesn't mean that Russia's going to fall apart in 3 days or anything, right? But it does mean things are starting to hurt. After 3 years of war and 3 years of punishing sanctions, they're really starting to hurt. And Putin might be looking for an out. Again, none of this is saying definitively there will be peace or definitively Russia is going to back down, but it's good news when Reuters reports that the Russian economy is hurting. This is interesting too from Trump. All right, yesterday or in the last day, we found out that Trump was doing yesterday, I think, we found out Trump was doing a 90-day delay in foreign aid. That U.S. aid to foreign countries was going to be delayed or stalled for 90 days, frozen for 90 days, no U.S. foreign aid. The Pentagon confirmed today that Ukraine is going to be exempt. Trump is going to continue the weapons going to Ukraine that the Biden administration already got started. He's not going to cut it off, at least for now. Again, that's very interesting. I got to tell you, a part of me was worried that Donald Trump might come into office and on his first day stop all aid to Ukraine, right? I mean, I was worried about it. Again, Trump is, thank you, Gabe. Trump is funny. There's a good, there's a lot of good and bad with Trump, but there's a good and a bad side to Trump with this stuff in that he's not the most expert on the issues. Okay. He doesn't know a lot. He doesn't. He doesn't know anything about foreign policy. His views, let me take a step back. His presidential positions, I do not think are based on his intellect, right? I don't think they're well thought out points of view. And after thinking of the facts, he says, I think this is what's best, right? I think Trump is transactional. I think Trump looks at what will benefit Trump, right? So that it is a good and a bad thing for Ukraine, because I guess here's the good thing. Because Trump is so transactional, I don't think he cares about anything. If you don't care about anything, that's bad, because it means we can't win you over with logical arguments. We can't win you over with heartfelt emotional argument. Right? Ukraine needs your help. America's democracy, this kind of stuff, right? We should be helping our friends. It doesn't care. Thank you, Jenny. He's doing things for transactional reasons. How does it benefit Trump? But that's not a bad thing, in that means you've got to figure out the transaction that works, right? You can buy him. You just have to figure out how to buy him. What is the transaction that benefits Trump? It means even though he's supporting Putin in the war-ish, it doesn't mean that he will continue to if he gets a better offer somewhere else, right? That's the question. So again, I think Ukraine's in trouble with Trump as president, but because he doesn't really care about the issues, he could change his mind on the issues because he doesn't care. More here. There was a massive drone, couple big drone strikes today. One I read about was in Kazan, east of Moscow, hitting an oil refinery. But the one everyone's talking about is southeast or southeast of Moscow, in a town called Ryazan, a big oil refinery, one of the biggest in Russia, that is been in flames for hours because the Ukrainians blew it up with a bunch of drones. So very interesting. Thank you, Liv, for the gift. Appreciate that. What else we got? North Korea is sending more weapons to Ukraine per Budanov. Budanov is the Ukrainian military intelligence chief. We do have a lot of trolls today. Well, I've been renaming my, when I name the show with a good name on TikTok, we get a lot of people showing up. Thank you, Bjorn, for the gifts. I did talk about birthright, but let me finish all of this stuff and we can talk about it in the Q&A portion. I'm going to finish the news here about Ukraine, and then we have a Q&A. Thank you, Look, for the gifts. Or IOC, I thought it was Look. IOC for the gifts. North Korea sending more weapons, according to Ukrainians. A majority of Ukrainians. Okay, this poll is interesting. New poll from the Kyiv Institute, International Institute of Sociology. 57% of Ukrainians believe any peace agreement that does not fully restore Ukraine's territory is destined to fail. I thought it was kind of interesting that it was 57%, meaning that doesn't seem to be a very large number. You know what I mean? I would have thought the number would have been very much larger that, wait, let me read this again. Yeah, much larger number of Ukrainians would say any peace agreement that does not fully restore Ukraine's lands, that does not get all of the land back from Russia, would fail. Over half of respondents regard Trump's presidency positively, ranging from rather good to very good. Okay. You know, we talked to Vlad about this a while ago too, and I think Ukrainians just kind of got fed up with Biden playing both sides. Not playing both sides, but Biden, and we've talked about this a lot. Anybody who's new may not be familiar with my theory on this, but Biden never wanted Ukraine to win. Biden wanted a tie. He didn't want Russia to win because that would be bad. If Russia wins in Ukraine, it opens up the possibilities of Russia going to war in the rest of Europe. But if Russia loses in Ukraine, Biden was worried about Russia using nuclear weapons. So Biden's goal was a tie. Stop Russia from taking more Ukrainian land, maybe even get some of the Ukrainian land back, but don't have such a big victory by Ukraine that Russia gets embarrassed. And if they get embarrassed, maybe they use nuclear weapons. So Biden wanted a tie. He wanted to give Ukraine enough weapons to defend themselves, but not enough weapons to win. And that's kind of what we ended up getting. And that is what has frustrated me with Biden from the beginning. I have said this from the beginning, and it has been proven to be correct, what I have been saying about Biden. So I think a lot of Ukrainians got a little fed up with Biden as well because of this in the middle kind of thing, you know? Actually, that is it for the news today. Now we can hang out and do Q&A and everything else. I take questions, I take your comments, but this way is a lot easier because I can actually read your comments and everything else, which is just a little bit easier. So yes, dig in. What do you want to talk about? We can talk about some of the stuff I talked about earlier, obviously. What do we got? What do we got? Biden's strategy was one step better than appeasement. I mean, it was much better than appeasement, but I get very divided on the Biden thing, as I said, because he did tremendous work helping Ukraine because I don't know that Trump would have, who knows, right? But at the same time, he made it so that Ukraine won't win. And he made it now that we're going to get a bad peace, I think. And we're going to get a peace in which Russia takes Ukrainian land. We're going to get a peace in which Russia, I think, tries to go after Ukraine again in 4 years, in 6 years, in 8 years. And that's very dangerous. So, yeah. Rusty, I'm sorry I did not tell you I was on. TikTok should tell you I'm on. I don't know much about Project Stargate. Project Stargate, which has a great name, is Trump's new initiative. It's a private sector initiative, but Trump's new initiative to invest anywhere from $100 billion to $500 billion into AI, artificial intelligence infrastructure in the U.S. I don't know any more about it. I know a lot of the big companies are involved. It's good, obviously, you know, but Elon Musk had come out and criticized it right after Trump announced it, claiming that most of the money isn't even there yet. Let's see. You know, let's hope. My concern is that sometimes what companies do, and I'm trying to remember, actually, I know what it is. Sometimes companies will take money they're already using and claim it. Like if they're already investing 20 billion in AI or whatever, they will say, "Oh, our commitment is to invest 20 billion into AI for Donald Trump's Stargate project," but they actually already had planned to invest the money anyway. But they make it sound like it's a commitment to Trump. So that's the problem, is sometimes it can be, it can be a little it can be fake. I hope it's real. I mean, I'm all for having a lot of economic support for AI in America. Why not? Right? Why not? Um, hmm. What else? Ukraine scenarios? In what sense? I mean, what Trump's going to do? I don't know. I mean, I just, I feel like Trump is going to force Ukraine to give up land. He's going to force Ukraine to give up all of the land that the Russians have already stolen. And I don't know what kind of security guarantees he's going to give Ukraine. I mean, we would have to have boots on the ground. And I don't think Trump wants to have U.S. boots on the ground, but there would have to be troops, NATO troops all over Ukraine, so that if the Russians were to invade again, they would have to engage with NATO troops and they'd be at war with NATO. But that is the only way to protect Ukraine. You know, um, well, I say EU troops because Trump won't send American troops. I doubt. I doubt. Uh what else, guys? What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? We do need to protect Ukraine because we are protecting Ukraine to protect ourselves. A couple different things here. Ukraine has effectively demolished the Russian military. They've set the Russian military back for years. Russia's military is a great threat to the US and to Europe. The Ukrainians have taken care of it for us. We have not had to risk a single US soldier doing that. That's amazing. Second of all, if Russia wins in Ukraine, Russia could very well go after the rest of Europe. They'd have to wait a few years to build their military back up, but Russia will have learned the lesson that Europe and America are not willing to stand up to tyranny. They're not willing to stand up to Russian aggression, and they would potentially go after a European country next. The Baltic states, Poland, certainly, Moldova next. So yeah, there's ample justification in history as to why you stop dictators from going to war, especially in Europe, because when you don't, they keep the war going and it gets bigger and bigger. And America learned this in World War I when we set out, and we learned it in World War II when we set out. Both wars, we came a little bit late. Actually, World War I had no idea how late we came to World War I. Like, didn't we come like just the last year or something? I was blown away. I remember World War I when I looked at the dates, I was like, what? But yeah. So that is why we get involved in Ukraine. Because we live, it's the same reason why why you should care if the police patrol the next neighborhood over, right? You shouldn't say, well, I only want police in my neighborhood. I don't want police in other neighborhoods because I don't care what happens in other neighborhoods. I do, because if the police don't catch them in the other neighborhood, eventually they're coming to your neighborhood. So, there you go, Alec. The U.S. declared war on Germany in 1917. The war ended in November of 1918. That's what I was going to say. I remember it being like a year, basically. UN troops like in Cyprus. I don't think the UN troops are a very good idea, only because nobody cares what the UN does. The UN is powerless. If Russia were to, let's say the war ends, and there are UN troops protecting the peace. If Russia were to reinvade Ukraine, and first of all, the UN troops probably wouldn't have the power to engage with the Russians. If they did, they'd lose. And so what if Russia were to go after UN troops in Ukraine, if it invaded again? I mean, the UN's not going to war with Russia. Individual countries wouldn't really care, right? UN peacekeepers are not troops from France. They're not American troops. They're not French troops. They're not British troops. They're not German troops. We need troops from NATO allies so that if Russia reinvades, Russia has to hurt British troops. Russia has to hurt French troops, right? So that Finnish troops, Norwegian troops, so that basically it becomes a tripwire for war. That's not really the case if it's the United Nations. It was the Japanese that bombed Pearl Harbor, correct? I'm not sure what you're trying to get across, Magic. Or are you trying to say that's what got us into World War II? Is that what I assume that's what you mean? Um, do I think Trump will exit from NATO? There's a chance. He's talked about it before. Congress allegedly passed. I say allegedly because I don't know the details of how it would work. But Congress passed legislation to try to make it harder for Trump to pull out of the UN, to pull out of NATO. Thank you, Carmelina. The thing is, Trump could just effectively pull out of NATO. He could stop going to NATO exercises. He could stop sending American troops. He could no longer promise to come defend NATO allies if the Russians invade, for example. So Trump could pull out of NATO simply by refusing to do anything with NATO. And then effectively it's as if we pulled out anyway, you know? Interesting. Yeah. I mean, the UN troop thing. Yeah. I'm reading more what you guys are writing here. Europe should join BRICS. That's cute. Oh, what else, guys? Slow day today. A little bit of a slow news day. Rush Limbaugh. What about him? What about him? Rush Limbaugh once. That's right. He's gone. Rush Limbaugh called me a wacko once on his radio show. Bunch of wackos, which was kind of fun. I used to have that in my Twitter bio, but then he died and became less relevant. So I no longer have it in my Twitter bio. But I love Rush Limbaugh called me a wacko. My claim to fame. U.S. troops were used during the original Egypt-Israel Accord. Oh, that's interesting. Birthright citizenship. Limbaugh died a couple years ago. Lung cancer or something. Yeah. Alex Jones is still around, but Limbaugh died a couple years ago. Yeah. So yeah, the birthright citizenship. So that's the issue where Trump, we talked about at the beginning of the show, under the U.S. Constitution, if you are born in the U.S., you become a citizen of the U.S. immediately. So what happens is, and Trump is trying to stop this, if you are here illegally and you have a child, your child becomes an American citizen. Or if you're here as a tourist and you have a child, your child becomes an American. And Russian women, for example, have been coming to America intentionally to give birth to their children here so that their children will become American citizens and they'll have a child with a U.S. passport, which is a little scary, in terms of why Russia might want to try that. Trump is trying to stop it with an executive order. He issued an executive order, executive orders can't really overrule the law. But Trump is claiming that he is going to stop, he's not going to recognize any child born here from a tourist or from a woman who is here illegally. That went to court already. The court today put a temporary restraining order, a TRO, on the law, temporarily freezing the law, temporarily saying, the law can't be in place, the law has to be frozen. It not implemented yet because he said it's blatantly unconstitutional. I don't know what the Supreme Court will do, but generally speaking, it's the law. It's the Constitution. If you're born in the U.S., I was looking at a map the other day. Most countries do not do it this way. I thought it was. I think I had the map, but it's gone now. I saw it on Twitter from a guy who's very good. And most countries do not do it the way we do it, where if you are born here, boom, you're a citizen. Right. The 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Exactly. What would your nationality be? Not American. I guess it depends. Actually, in most countries, I believe it's based on your parents. Help me out here, but Europeans or Asians or Latin Americans out there, in many countries, I think it's based on your parents. So if you're born to, parents of a certain country, even if you're in America, you'd be the nationality of the mother and the father. Exactly. Callum just said that based on the parents. Yeah. Pascal, who might be French with a name like Pascal, could be Latino as well. In America, it's well, the only thing is, I shouldn't say that. I don't know Good question. What do American citizens do who have a child born abroad? How does it work for that? I wonder. I mean, there's got to be a very clear answer. But under US law, how do they get their kid to be an American? You know, you register it at the embassy, but is that enough? You register. In other words, we do have the other kind of citizenship too for children, which is recognizing being born to an American. Exactly. Um, Callan is saying you looked into it. Okay, I'm sure you did. Yeah. Boris Johnson was born in New York. I forgot about that. Yeah, so he would be American if he kept it or whatever. If you're abandoned and orphaned, I don't know, Cliff. Well, you'd still be whatever your parents were. You had to be born from somebody. If we now, good question. If we don't know where you came from, well, you'd be yeah, but then you'd get a green card as an undocumented immigrant or something. You know what I mean? Because if you were born to foreigners in America and they left you on the curb and nobody knows who your parents were, but they know your parents weren't Americans. First of all, it doesn't matter. You're born in America, you'd be American. If we get rid of birthright citizenship, the court would look at it and go, the immigration court would go, okay, we've got a baby that was abandoned by foreigners. Even if the baby weren't American by birthright, the baby obviously is going to stay in America because there's nowhere to send it. We don't know where the baby's from. We don't know what country it's from, right? So the baby would get a green card or whatever it is, basically. Yeah, I'm still TikTok. I'm still trying the T-Mobile today. So let's see. But so it glitched briefly. Yeah. It glitched on my TV earlier today too. Oh, that's a well-tested thing, Daniel. If you have a baby while flying, you're not whatever country you're flying over. I believe, because there's a famous Damien's mom. I think my friend Damien's mom was born something like this. You are, I believe, the nationality of the air carrier. I am pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's the air carrier. Let me ask Damien because I think his mom had this. Hold on. Was it your mom who had the nationality question regarding being born on a plane or something and how it works for your nationality? Only Damien's, family would have that kind of. Oh, not you, Damien. I sent it to Matt instead. Hold on, let me copy this and send it to Damien. Copy. Callum, no. Damien, yes. All my friends here. Paste. Let's see what he says. The nationality of the air carrier is what I remember it being. Yeah. Yep. I believe so. Yeah. I think Damien. Okay, I think it was Damien. Yeah, because his was like Belgium or something like that for his mom, or she went into labor at the Belgian embassy, or something like that, or she went into labor at an embassy. It was something weird like that. With his mom. Yeah. I'm an American Puerto Rican born in New York. Should I be scared? Well, I mean, yes, a little bit. I would say no, but at the same time, look who we're dealing with, right? I mean, you're an American, so hopefully you're fine, but these guys. No, I think legally you're an American, so they wouldn't be able to touch you. In the end, even a Republican court would be fine with you, right? So you should be fine with that. What else we got? What else? What if you have a green card? What about the green card? Yep. All right. We'll see if Damien gets back to me here. Up. A Norwegian is a Norwegian all over the world if the parents are Norwegian. Okay, yeah. Well, as I said, most countries are that way. The U.S. has that, but we are also whoever's born here, which is fast. Thank you, Addie, for the wool hat. Keep the gifts coming, guys. Remember, I hate to ask, but the gifts are how I pay the bills. And also, TikTokers, please follow me on YouTube. TikTok is still in the nowhere land of waiting for the next ban. We've got Trump delayed the ban kind of 75 days, kind of. What I worry about, actually, folks, tell me again, is the TikTok app back in the App Store yet? I'm suspecting it is not. Trump didn't really do anything, basically. No, it's not. Trump didn't actually do anything. Trump said for 75 days he will not enforce the law against Apple and Google. Under the law, Apple and Google could face billions of dollars of penalties if they have the Google app in their app stores. Apple and Google have clearly said what Trump did wasn't enough. Trump literally didn't do anything in terms of anything that had an impact, unfortunately. TikTok did shut itself down, and then it opened up again. It's not clear why they shut down. TikTok is not facing penalties, we believe, under the law. It's YouTube, but it's Google and Apple and others that would face the penalties. Trump actually didn't delay it at all. He didn't delay anything. Trump said he will not. Trump said if Google and Apple put the app back on, and they're not, if they do, he won't come after them for 75 days for the money that they owe, the penalties. And he won't come after them for that money afterwards. That's not a legal commitment. He can change his mind. And any future president can change their mind. That's the first problem. The second problem is Apple and Google have not let the app back in. They're still not letting the TikTok app in their stores. That means Apple and Google felt that what Trump did the other day was insufficient. What Trump did literally did not turn TikTok back on. It didn't. TikTok went back on because they wanted to go back on. I fear, and we're not being told what's up, I fear we are still in the situation where the app, until it gets degraded, will work. And if the app gets degraded, it won't work. So that's the thing I worry about. So we'll see, but that's where we are. If the app starts to conflict with the Apple Store, or with, if we get an update to the operating system and it doesn't cooperate with the TikTok app, we could be in trouble. So you need to follow me on YouTube, all of you folks on TikTok. My YouTube address is right there. Please follow me. No updates, not on this issue, not on TikTok issue. There's no updates at all. UK phone networks went down today. That's suspicious. Trump has said America should own half of TikTok. Yep. Well, Canada has the app, of course, because you're okay. These are the Americans. I'm, of course, talking about the App Store in America. The law only applies to the Americas, to America. Could the shutdown be to move servers, get them outside U.S. jurisdiction? Maybe, but I don't know whether it gets them outside jurisdiction. Well, you still have the App Store problem. The App Store is in U.S. jurisdiction. So I don't know. That's an interesting question. Maybe. Because, right, the server, actually, good question. You're right about the server. Actually, good point about the server thing. Because one of the things we were worried about under the law was that the law would penalize companies that host, like Oracle, that host TikTok on their servers in America. So it's possible TikTok moved our stuff, our content, off of American servers so we could keep running. That is one possibility. Yes. But again, Trump's executive order doesn't change that. I do have Blue Sky. I am Aravosis on everything other than YouTube. So on every account, I'm Aravosis. On YouTube, I'm John Aravosis DC. That on TikTok, you will see right there. Is it possible the 2024 election was stolen? No, I don't believe it. Nope. How do we know for sure? Because nothing is true unless you can prove it. So if you're going to allege the election was stolen, you got to have proof. I've never, otherwise it's a conspiracy theory, right? How do we know the moon isn't made of cheese? Maybe the dark side is, right? No, I'm right. I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, no one's been to the dark side. It could be cheese, right? I mean, that's you just can't come up with a, and this is, it's called in the law, it's called proving a negative. And it's people who try to argue something by basically making it impossible for you to prove the opposite, right? Maybe there's cheese on one little part of the moon. You haven't been everywhere, have you? No. Right? I mean, it's just like, come on, you know? So yeah. Um, looking here. I'm a web developer, says Gregory. If a client's website has EU customers, they're supposed to follow EU laws for those customers, even if they're not based in the EU. That's what I was assuming, right? That all of a sudden US law applies because you're serving your product to Americans, you know? Right, disproving versus no evidence of, exactly. You've got to be able to prove it. You've got to be able to provide evidence of something before you say, prove me wrong. You haven't been proven right yet. Right. Well, that's the thing too. The thing is with US elections, I've got to pull up that. I've got to have that article printed out so I'm ready with it. There have been so few cases of voter fraud in history, they amount to next to nothing. And it's kind of funny because there was an article like in the last year, maybe last several months, talking about the US cases of voter fraud and how we've had, like, again, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, was it like 100 cases of voter fraud in the last 20 years? Something ridiculously small. I mean, ridiculously small, like in presidential elections. And it's out of billions of ballots cast, there were something like 100 that might have been fake over like 2 decades, over 20 years. Absolutely. There's been so little voter fraud in America. It's not even funny. Voter suppression, that's a different question, right? But as far as voter fraud, we don't have significant voter fraud in America at all. Some people have tried to convince you that we do, and they're lying. We just do not. It's a conspiracy theory. That's an interesting point. Gregory Folk says, I think most non-Americans don't understand that voting in this country is basically done at the neighborhood level, not the national or state level. Trying to change votes here would be a huge task. Yeah, that basically each local area of a city is kind of in charge of its own vote counting, so that it gets very difficult if you're trying to steal an election. Because, in my city, even in Washington, D.C., there's my little place I go to vote, and they've got their machines there that they count. Like, it's so disparate and disseminated that it's very hard to cheat at a national level. Yep. Computer voting. Yeah, I couldn't even tell you about the details of computer voting. Why? What do you guys use? Do you vote on paper in the UK still? What else, guys? Well, we'll wait to see if you vote on paper. Really? Oh my God. Oh, how funny. How funny. Oh, that's funny. That's really interesting. Wow. Paper ballots. Oh my God. In South Dakota, you vote on paper? Wow. I mean, that, again, I do worry as we go on about machines being hacked, right? I mean, that absolutely is a concern, right? I mean, we know, as technology gets more sophisticated, right? But still, a number of states vote on paper. I did not know that. How interesting. Again, we're not talking absentee. I voted absentee in DC on paper. Yeah, sure. But in person, Okay, so a number of states, U.S. states, say they vote on well, no, if you vote by mail, of course it's in person. But when you go in person, it's still, it's still well, okay. It depends what you mean by paper, okay? Depends what you mean by paper. I guess that's true. That's a good question, actually. I'm forgetting in DC when I voted in person, because I voted absentee the last few times. When I voted in person, sometimes sometimes I think you had a paper ballot that you put into the machine at the end. Other times it was just the voting machine. Oh, you had a choice. That was it. You had a choice when we voted in DC. You could either do the machine or the paper. I remember this several years ago. And I once did the machine because I was like, this is stupid. But then I did paper once too. And I had to put the paper into a box or into the machine to be scanned or something like that. Okay, right. Right. So some places you have a choice. I do remember that now. Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So yeah, a lot of I mean, well, and again, as anybody's seeing who's watching the conversation, each state does it differently, which is really fascinating of among the US states. So that it's done state by state. Um, hmm. I think Trump already has. When did Tesla's asking, oh, why did we leave the Paris Agreement? Don't ask me, because Republicans don't believe in climate change, basically. Well, okay, A, they don't really believe in climate change. We left the Paris Climate Agreement. B, and this one, there's a little more of an argument on that. They've got a little more of a point on this one. Countries like China don't want to cut back. And some developing countries, I think Brazil, maybe one of them, don't either, because, but this gets interesting. Some of the developing countries say, well, you're the ones who polluted everything for 100 years. And now that we're industrializing, you want us to stop? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you polluted everything and got big as a result of it. And now you want to stop before we can get big. So I can understand why it bothers them, but I can also understand why it bothers us to say, why are we going to have to make all the cuts and hurt our economy, but they don't want to make the cuts for theirs. So it's an interesting argument on both sides for that one. I remember reading years ago an argument that if we want developing countries to cut back on pollution and stuff, we should pay them, because basically, it's true. We created the climate, not just we, but we had certainly a big hand in creating the climate problem, and reaped the benefits of it. Having said that, I don't want to be definitive on this until I would research more recently what's the latest data on what percent of the problem is us versus what percent is other countries, right? Because now it could be other countries, non-developing countries that are creating, bigger problem. Nuclear fusion. Well, nuclear energy, I got to tell you, nuclear energy, I have often wondered at what point thank you, KT, we're going to see a big sort of blow up on the environmental community between pro and anti-nuke, because you could be anti-nuke, but it sure seems like it's the solution to climate change. Even fission. I mean, not even fusion, right? Even the current nukes we've got. Yeah, it's scary. They can be scary. What do you do with the waste? But if you're worried about just destroying the climate overall, I would rather deal with nuclear plants and worry about them later on. you know, um, I mean, it's very interesting. Well, we had, my God, and I don't want to say climate change, but we just had a blizzard overnight in the southern United States, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, the Florida beaches covered with snow. That simply does not happen. I mean, they got 8 inches of snow in many parts of the South. 8 inches is like this. It's like 18, no, yeah, 18, 19 centimeters, maybe 8 inches of snow. It's a huge amount for these areas that never get snow at all. I mean, Florida, like I said, there were literally pictures of the Florida beaches covered in snow. That never happens. Um, it just never happens. So, 20 centimeters. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Just crazy. Oh, is Ireland getting hit now too? 10 inches in Pensacola. Wow. Although kind of cool. I mean, if you don't get snow, 10 inches is fun anyway. But if you really don't get snow, it's got to shut down the city. But at the same time, it would be really fun to experience that kind of snow. I would love to be down there witnessing people who didn't grow up with snow experiencing the snow, especially kids, because it's got to be a lot. Although you may not have the clothing for it, that I don't know. 5 inches in the Florida Panhandle. That's wild. Yeah, just wild. Um, a foot in Arkansas. Wow, wow, that's fun. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Snowball fight in Baton Rouge. Oh, that's fun. Did they or they didn't? You're saying they did, Blue? Um, oh, videos out of New Orleans. I'll have to Google and see. Actually, I'm sure Instagram probably has a lot of good videos of New Orleans. New Orleans. I'm from Chicago, so we say New Orleans, or they say New Orleans. New Orleans? No, New Orleans. They say right. Um, but that's fun. That's fun. Snowball fight in New Orleans. That's so funny. God, that would be 8 inches on Bourbon Street. That's just insane. Wow. New Orleans. Oh, that's true. New Orleans. Yeah. I can't say that. Yeah. TikTok. I did not see. I'll have to look. I did not see that on TikTok. The the New Orleans. Oh, hold on a second. Damien got back. What was Damien's? My mom's original listed her mom. Oh, Damien says it wasn't his mom, but his mom's problem was his mother's original birth certificate listed her mom. Her mom was Joachim Marie, right? Listed it as Joseph Marie, which was a nightmare. Joseph, although Joachim is a man's name too, as I recall in Germany. That's funny. Okay. Somebody was telling me about that, about the whole Belgian embassy thing. I remember that. Oh, right. I was going to look at TikTok for the New Orleans snow videos. Oop, hang on. New Orleans snow.
The party streets of the French Quarter were packed with snow instead of people Tuesday, as Winter Storm Enzo created suburban.
Okay, y'all, I want to show you exactly how deep the snow is on the streets.
This is fun. Oh my God.
In Mid-City, New Orleans. I'm going to flip the camera around and show you how deep the snow is.
How fun.
So this is Canal Street that runs straight towards the CBD and the French
I
Quarter.
mean, 8 inches of snow. Wow. That's so crazy. 8 inches of snow. Wow. Oh. And then people dancing, which is also fun too. People dancing, of course, in New Orleans. In New Orleans. Dancing with the feathers and everything else, of course.
Do you guys want to see something absolutely insane?
It is kind of fun though, with everybody just looking at all the. I mean, that's a good snowstorm anywhere, really.
This is how much snow.
That's a really good snowstorm.
Shit. Louisiana is getting.
Wow. Oh, there's a snowball fight. Oh, nice. Oh, a snowball fight and a guy on a trombone. Oh. 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 That's funny. Somebody goes, only in New Orleans, a snowball fight and a guy on a trombone. Somebody's playing his trombone in the middle of the snowball fight. That's really funny. Oh my God. That is really funny. That's very cool. Oh wow. That's fun. Anyway. Oh my, oh my, oh my. Anyway, what else, guys? What else? Just scanning the All the winter clothes are in storage. Oh, somebody from Alaska moved to Florida. Oh well, New Orleans, or Nouvelle Orleans. Not easy to say. Ooh la la, ooh la la. To see the French. Aaron Parnas video about the ice raids. Nope, I did not see. What's new? There was a crypto executive order. I saw that. Very interesting. Well, je parle assez bien français, Pascal. Alors, t'es français ou quoi? Mhm. Actually, I ran into somebody who was a French journalist with Radio France, one of them, who's here. Ah, Suisse. Ah, il y était une fois que quelqu'un a pensé que j'étais suisse. J'étais à Paris et c'était super. Mais c'était après d'avoir passé 3 mois à Paris et donc mon accent était beaucoup mieux. But it was great. I was saying I was in France once and I'd been there for 3 months because I had eye surgery, and the a Frenchman thought I was Swiss, and I went, Swiss, and I said, Swiss French or German? He goes, no, Swiss French, and I was like, ooh. Which was kind of, I mean, granted, he didn't think my accent was French, but he thought he thought I was a native speaker from Switzerland in French. So I was kind of like, woo, because that's always the stuff although I will say this, when you learn a foreign language, what's funny is when you learn a foreign language, you want to sound like the locals, but as a local, I think it's more interesting when a foreigner has an accent. Like when foreigners try to sound too American, they become boring. You know what I mean? It's just boring after if they become too American with the accent. I'm like, no, your accent is so sexy and stuff, you know? So it's funny, as an American, we always try to sound like a local if you speak foreign languages, but it's sort of the same funny, which I'm sure for them, if you sound too French, then it's not interesting, you know? But I love that, the Swiss. I was like, Swiss. That's funny. I like when I was I remember so I've been to Switzerland a few times, but I liked when I was first on the train heading down to Switzerland, and I remember they said 90. I think the train conductor said no. Maybe it was 90 francs for something, or I don't know what, because the franc was still existing. He said 90, and I went 90, and I said, oh, 90. It was very funny. Thank you, Bowie. Thank you, JPT. But cute little, like all the cute, and was it Grüezi, which we had to say to everybody walking the path. We were walking in the snow in Geneva, or outside of Geneva, and everybody was saying Grüezi to each other, which I guess is, I'm going to assume it's Swiss German, but they still say it in the French areas, which is very cute. This greeting to everyone. It was nice. It was very cute. I mean, I like Switzerland. Switzerland, people think is kind of boring as an American, but it was very nice visiting there. Why is it snowing? Yeah, 70, 90. Yep. Now I forgot. Is 80, or is it 80 for the Swiss? I don't want to get too esoteric for people here. Other than Gunther, Pascal, and I, everyone else is going to get bored. I do not think Russia will attack the U.S. No. We don't. Oh, but in Geneva, they say 80? We don't. Oh my God, how funny. We don't. That's funny. Again, I mean, I studied French in Paris, and I've spent so much time in France that I'm a bit of a French snob, so that I laugh when I hear like Canadian French, or like you said, like some of the words in Swiss. It makes me laugh. We don't. But I said 90. 90 was great. I was like 90. We don't for 80. Yeah. Instead of 80. Oh, interesting little. Okay, my last linguistic story of the day before I bore everybody. But when I was not living, but I went to France for summer. I used to go to France every summer, and I had to have eye surgery. I had a retinal detachment while I was in France. A very bad thing. Had to go for eye surgery, and they have a hospital specializing in eyes in France, which is cool. A whole hospital dedicated to your eye, and it was called the 1520 Hospital, which is 1520. And I Googled. I was like, what a funny name for a hospital. And I Googled it, and the hospital was created back in, I don't know, the 1200s, the 1300s, maybe the 1400s. It's very old. I mean, this hospital is like 800 years old or something. Thank you, JPT. And it originally had 300 beds. So the hospital was named the 1520, which is 1520, because in Old French, 1520 was the way you said 300. Now, today, to say 80 in French, you say 80 is the word 80 in French, which is 420, meaning 4 times 20 is 80. So 15 was the progression from 80, 50, 60, or whatever it is. But 15 was 15 times 20, which is 300, which I think is just fascinating. I think it's absolutely fascinating. So anyway, that was my little French lesson of the day. 15 is the name of the hospital because they had 300 beds back at the original. Kind of fun. PC is saying, is the stereotype of the French being snooty towards Americans true? I don't think so. A couple things here. I speak French fluently. That helps. I lived in France. I know how to I know how to get things done in France. In Paris, I should say Paris, okay? In Paris, I always say they want you to genuflect. Parisians want you to be a little submissive, right? So when you go into a store, you always say, hello, how are you? If you need help with something, I'm really sorry. Could you possibly help me? For my taste, I always found it to be a little submissive, and they like that. We, being American, we're a little more direct, right? But if you speak French well, even if you don't speak French well, a lot of French people really like it that you try to speak French. Some of them don't. But some of them really do, even if you don't speak French well, some of them really like that you try. Some of them don't care if your French is fluent, they'll still speak English, right? My sense was, in Paris at least, maybe 25% of people, and this was years ago, but I think it's still probably true, maybe 25% of people really like Americans. Like there's a bit of an American fetish, right? For maybe 25% of Parisians. And I remember even meeting people who were like, oh my God, I love your American accent. It's so cool. And I'm like, my American accent is cool in French? You're kidding. Like usually we think it's horrible, but they were like, oh no, it's very sexy. And I'm like, American accent in French is sexy. Okay. And then you've got maybe 25% who are rude, but they're just rude anyway. I don't think they're rude to Americans. It's just rude in general. So, but I think like overall, I found people to be pretty good, but it can be a little different. I mean, it's culturally, it's a very different country culturally. I mean, in stores, well, not even in stores. There's a little bit of a functionary attitude. Like if they've got you, they like to get you. So like when you go into a store, they got you, right? Like you need their help. So and they like to dominate you a little bit. So like you can have an issue with that, right? Professors, anybody in a position of power can abuse it a little bit. There's a little bit of sometimes can be a little bit of a, domination thing. But no, I mean, some things drove me crazy in Paris, but I found a lot of people really liked and a lot of people were impressed I spoke French. They liked that. They liked that I went through the trouble of learning French. But I think in any country, Greece too. Greece was funny that way too, because I speak Greek and the Greeks didn't necessarily care, but some of them did. Like one of the taxi drivers loved that I spoke Greek. And he did. He was like, I love that your Greek is so good. It's so good. He was like excited that I went to the trouble of learning Greek. So it kind of depends, but taking advantage of your naivete, I don't know. And again, Paris is different, like they say, than everything else. I've traveled in France, but I don't know the rest of France. I know Paris. You're French Canadian, you hardly understand them. Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. My favorite thing to say in Greek? Jeez. I don't know. I mean, I don't speak Greek a lot, but I mean, I actually talk to my dog in Greek sometimes, and I'm trying to remember. I think I say "elare" a lot to my dog, which means like, come on, you, because she's always playing games like "ella," like come on. I think I do say that. I don't say "opa," no, but I think I say that to her a lot. That's funny. I would have thought for French Canadians you'd have an easy time understanding the French, right? Because that's very funny. I listen to Greek music sometimes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, English is required. Yeah, but I mean, at one point, well, that's true. At one point, their language was the lingua franca, and now it's ours. I mean, whatever. I mean, we've been very fortunate, and we don't, I think, even totally realize it, that of how what an advantage it is to us speaking English fluently and natively, with it being used so much around the world. Who is that? Janice. Thank you, Janice, for the gift. I've never spent any time in Macedonia. No, Caro, never have. Tempted to go, but just have never gone. That gift, it's a French potato. That gift, it's funny. It's a little oh, that's right. Because I wasn't even thinking you're giving a French gift because we're talking France. Of course you are. That's cute. Yeah, French Cajun. I actually was watching a TikTok video. Yeah, a YouTube video yesterday of a guy speaking French Cajun, which is very interesting. And they were saying that French Cajun is a little bit like, they're saying like the Cajun accent is a little bit like French Canadian and English mixed, which I thought was interesting. But the French Cajun also to me sounded like an American speaking French, Yeah, French Canadians. I mean, I've watched the French Canadian videos sometimes, like Audrey. Audrey's videos, I have to spend a lot of time watching them to understand. I understand some, but not all of it. Like I've got to spend a lot of time watching her videos to then start understanding more and more. It reminds me when I went, because I speak Spanish too. When I went to Puerto Rico years ago, I couldn't understand a damn thing, and I'm fluent in Spanish. Not a thing. And after 3 days, then I understood. But it took 3 days of hearing it to finally get the accent and stuff. I was like, okay. And I'm sure French speaking Canada's got to be similar. I mean, I've been, to, I always forget what it's called, Gatineau or whatever, just for dinner. The waitress spoke proper French, so we understood each other. But I want to spend more time in going through French Canada because I've always been curious. Oh, a little more water. Oh, my dog needs water. One moment here. One moment, you. One moment. Oh, no, that's good enough for the moment. There. Okay, that's good for starting. What else we got here? That's what I know. Proper French. You know what I mean. Like I said, I've spent too much time in Paris. I've become a French snob. NAACP meeting. Okay, have fun. Anyway, we're gonna wrap it up shortly, guys. We've been doing almost an hour and a half here, so. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your comment, Katie. You got married in Switzerland. Oh, that's interesting. And then took a 2 weeks vacation in Paris once. Oh, that's interesting. Married in Switzerland. Why? Is your spouse Swiss or something? Or you guys just thought Swiss would be fun? Saint Pierre and Miquelon? No, don't even know them. Are they Caribbean or are they like South Pacific? Schools teach Parisian French as being proper French. Oh, in Canada. Interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Interesting. Okay. Huh. Chocolatine. Oh, that's interesting. Or pain au chocolat. Is chocolatine Canadian? I don't remember. I, of course, learned pain au chocolat, of course. Oh, the French islands up in Canada. Oh, I've never even heard of them. Okay. Never heard of them. Nope. Sasha, I gave you some water. Come on. Take a break. Take a break. Hey, I don't want her having too much water right now because then she'll have to pee in the middle of the night, which is not fun. But yep, old French islands off the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. Oh, okay. Still belong to France. Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Interesting. But is chocolatine Canadian? Who says chocolatine? Oh, no. Parts of France say that too, they. DC is not terrible today. DC right now is 27, actually. It pretty much the cold. It's getting cold tonight, but then we're done. Because it's still 27 right now, which is great. Parts of France say chocolatine. That's what I thought. Half of France. Okay. Yeah, I don't know that I've been. Well, I had once. I was at a restaurant with my mom in Chartres, right? So where the big famous cathedral is in France, and and of course, being American, being American and B, being a Chicagoan, we talk to people. Like being from Chicago in the Midwest, we're very open and we talk to people. And we were in Chartres, and outside of Paris, people friendlier. And there was an older couple at the table next to us, and the woman ordered a café crème or a crème. No, not a café crème. She ordered a café au lait, and I said to her, Madame, like the waiter. I said, Madame, can I ask you a question? She goes, of course. And again, in France, I would think in France or in Paris, at least, you don't really turn to the table next to you and ask a grammar question. But I was like, what the hell, right? And I said, I noticed you ordered a café au lait. And I said, what? I live in Paris and I don't understand. I've never understood the difference between a café au lait and a café crème, a café cream, they call it. And I said, she said, the difference is in Paris, they call it a crème because this. And I said, oh, they're the same thing. She goes, yeah, but the Parisians have to have a different word, a crème, which I thought was, oh my God. Oh, hey, Martini in Montreal. Good to see you. But I thought it was very funny when she said, à Paris, what is it? Il s'appelle crème parce que. And I was like, oh my God, it was so funny. But it is true because in Paris you say crème. A café au lait, I think I remember even in Paris it being a bit, I want to say from what I remember in Paris, it was a bit silly to call it a café au lait. It was just, like it's just, I don't know, maybe it's provincial or you look like a tourist or whatever it is. In Montreal, you'd say a latte. Well, the only thing is, but for me, a latte ends up having more milk than I want. Like it's a little too much milk. You know what I mean? Or for you guys, when you say latte, does that mean café? Does it mean a café au lait? Where it's, a good shot of milk, but not this much milk. Okay, so a latte is still more latte versus, but do you say crème or café au lait in Montreal? We should do that one of these times. It'd be fun to café au lait. Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. I would say one of these times it would be fun to do a broadcast in French or Spanish, but it's a little hard doing it on my own. Like it'd be fun to do it with a couple people. You know what I mean? But doing it on my own, Blue would be a little difficult. I'm a Brit who does a lot of IT service work for U.S. companies. Will tariffs ruin that work? Well, I don't know if it'll ruin it for you. I don't know how tariffs will affect. That's a good question. I don't know how they affect you. I think of tariffs as affecting the goods, right? I don't think of it as affecting services, but maybe it could. Trump did start to threaten the Brits too. What was it? He was threatening you guys the other day. What did he want from you? Isle of Man or something, or he wanted something and started threatening you guys too. But you're not the top of the threats. But I wasn't really thinking of the UK, Canada and Mexico. Definitely a problem. But for the rest of it, I don't know. Yeah. Au revoir, Blue Ariel. Ordering a coffee at Starbucks in Quebec is Quebec. I keep saying Quebec. I picked that up when I was over there, and I would say Quebec. Starbucks already has their own lingo, and then plus Quebec, completely unintelligible. That's why. Hey, laddie, thank you. That's funny. Well, he's going to try to hit Canada hard. Oh. Okay. Sorry, Katie. Just read it now. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, the thing that's going to be interesting with Trump and the tariffs is whether he's bluffing to a degree because he's going to cause a trade war. So, we'll see. But it worries me. So. Oh, hey, GSGL. Although we're about to leave shortly, but do follow me on TikTok. I'll tell the TikTokers again, follow me on YouTube, that little thing there, because I am not convinced TikTok. Let's see what happens. I'm very worried about what's going to happen with TikTok in the next 2 months. We've got 73 days left. And I fear we are going back to the place we were at last weekend. So do follow me if you would. Does Congress have to approve tariffs? I don't think so. I don't know how the tariff thing actually works. I don't know how it works. Let's Google and see the presidential power to impose tariffs. Presidential power to impose tariffs. Let's see, from Center for Strategic International Studies. Okay, this is stupid. Okay, this is from a think tank, and they wrote an essay about it, and they don't have an executive summary at the top. I mean, they've got an introduction that's like this big. I don't want to see the freaking, unless the introduction gives an answer. Come on. Oh my God. This is terrible. Yeah, you don't write a 10-page essay about it without giving a summary. Conclusion. Okay, if Trump wins back the White House, U.S. trading partners are likely to face a barrage of renewed tariff threats. During Trump's first term, he used tariffs for a variety of purposes. No, this is a horrible essay from CSIS. Wow, they're a really big think tank too. They wrote a huge essay with no executive summary on it. Jesus Christ. Okay, Brookings, they're a good think tank. Let's see what they say. Can Trump impose tariffs that quickly? Potentially, yes. The executive branch has an unusually broad menu of options when it comes to tariffs. The president is able to dictate tariff rates, which countries and goods they apply to, and when and how to impose them without congressional approval, and sometimes without public input or judicial review. We can't think of another economic policy issue where the executive branch has so much power and escapes the checks and balances. This is a choice made by Congress. Interesting. The executive branch has the authority to impose tariffs through two different processes. First, a series of trade acts enacted between the 1930s and 1970s empower the executive branch to proclaim tariff rates to protect American workers and consumers. To invoke this authority, an investigation is initiated by the Department of Commerce or the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative to determine whether tariffs are necessary, blah, blah, blah. Instead, if Trump wishes to impose tariffs more quickly, he will likely need to invoke the authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977. Congress grants the authority to the executive branch to address unusual and extraordinary peacetime threats to national security, foreign policy, or the economy. In May 2019, Trump threatened to use it to implement tariffs on Mexican imports. He withdrew the threat after Mexico caved. So yeah. There you go. So the president has huge power to implement tariffs. There you go. All right. See, Alec. Okay. Well, that was interesting. Didn't know that. Wow. That's bad. That's bad. All right, guys. I'm going to sign off. Yeah, I can do something on it. I mean, I'd have to do a lot more research. I've talked about tariffs in my videos, about cars and some of the other stuff, but I will do more videos on them because it's important. And Trump said today that, the tariffs are going to fill the U.S. government coffers. Yeah, at the expense of American citizens, because we're going to pay for them. Tariffs typically increase the price of goods. So he puts prices on iPhones coming in from China. He puts prices on lumber, or tariffs on lumber coming in from Canada, on oil coming in from Canada, on cars coming in from Mexico. That's going to increase the price of all of those goods for us. So not very good. Anyway, all right. All right, I'm going to call it quits, guys. We've been going an hour and a half. All right. Thank you for joining us. Actually, an hour and 40 minutes. We're going long tonight. So have a good night. Cement from Canada too. Okay. So have a good night. I will see you guys tomorrow. 6:00 Eastern time. US is my show. It's free for everybody. TikTok, YouTube, Discord. And Saturday, if you're a paying monthly member on TikTok with SNN next to your name, or on YouTube with a green name, or Discord, if you're a paid monthly member, join me Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Discord, YouTube, and TikTok. And we have our show just for you guys that I do as a thank you. So, all right. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you all for showing up, for your gifts and your support. And I will see you all mañana. All right, Katie, have a good night. I'm going to hang up on Katie. Katie already hung up. All right, disconnect. All right, YouTube next. All right, bye, YouTube. Beep, 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 beep. And you guys on TikTok.